Hey, sports fans, it's Larry Eder with RunBlogRun. We're at Socialing the Distance, and our guest today is Des Linden. And Des, you've pretty much made your career around, well, many things, but Boston Marathon is the way a lot of people think of you. And I remember being in the press room in 2011, watching you and listening to, I think it was Larry Rawson, go totally ape shit that you were running so well. You had this, as you do when you're running really good races, you had almost a stoic look on your face. Can you go back there? Do you have memories from that race?
Yeah, I mean, well, first, thanks for having me on. It's always good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you.
And it'll be fun to catch up. But 2011, yeah, it's definitely one of those moments where you feel like you're in that flow state and you look back at it afterwards and you're like, man, everything just felt so easy. And you expect it to be onwards, upward from there. Like it's going to be just better from here. But then you spend a career just trying to get back into that moment where everything feels so fluid and easy. But it's one of the magical things about running. I tweeted this thing the other day. It's like you have those moments where it just feels so good and easy. And then you spend the rest of the time kind of chasing that. And that was one of those days where I just felt so ready to race, and it sort of like the race unfolded just how I imagined it after the 15K point on. And, you know, I said beforehand, if I was in contention or close to the lead at 20 miles, I felt like I could win that year. And, you know, sure enough, right around 20 is when I kind of moved into that lead group. And then it was just instincts like, okay, race like you know how to race on the track or anywhere else. But it was something I visualized after that. Like, okay, just try to get back to that moment and that feeling of your fitness and your ability and your confidence, because it all clicked on that day for sure.
You're prone to self-analysis, especially after races. One of the things I really enjoy about you. And when you had a couple injuries after 2012, and we would kind of ask you, hey, where are you at? You were pretty self-critical. And you said something just a couple minutes ago where you get to that place where it's so easy, and then you go, man, how do I get back there? I remember talking to Wilson Kipketer, 800-meter world record holder, and he told me the biggest mistake he ever made was he got malaria, and he tried to come back really fast. He tried to come back in a year, and he said what he should have done is taken 3 years to come back. You seem to be pretty patient with yourself because you know kind of you have this self-knowledge. How do you talk yourself into not coming back too fast when you have had a challenge?
Yeah, it's definitely, the long game has been a super important part of my career. But I've been lucky that Brooks has allowed me to think that way. And there's not a lot of brands that say, if you don't perform as well as you did this week, you know, we can reduce you or get rid of you. It's always been a long-term buy-in from Brooks, and they just really gave me that flexibility and support to come back the way I needed to, and not feel under time pressure or crunch. And it's still hard individually because you want to be competing at the highest level. And that's the thing, coming back from injuries, and particularly I had the femur fracture, where it's like, the natural mistake is to compare yourself to what you used to be, and say, okay, I've made this dent into where I was before, and now I got a little bit better. But ultimately you look at it and you're just like, I'm so far off of what I was doing, becomes kind of a mark that just is too far out there to reach. And you have to focus, you know, day by day and just really stay in the moment. And again, I was lucky to have, you know, Kevin and Keith as coaches who allowed me to do that. And Brooks is a partner who said, it's okay, take as long as you need. And then in that process, it's like, you know, it's like when you have an injury and you go out for a run and you forget which side it was on. Like, I can't remember if it was the left or the right, because you start feeling normal again. And then you look back at your training log and you're like, oh, this is the best workout I've ever done. Like, this is it happens, you know, quicker than you think when you're not just dialed in, focusing and trying to watch the pot boil. It's like, just worry about going out and putting one foot in front of the other. And then next thing you know, you get back there and it's like, oh, I've surpassed what I was doing before.
Speaking of watching the pot boil, we're in the middle of the COVID pandemic. You're up in Michigan?
I am. Yep.
Okay. Describe a typical day right now.
Well, it's getting hot here right now. So we're trying to, we're coming off the 4th of July weekend, which was a little unstructured, a little bit of too much fun. So I'm trying to get a schedule set. So I'm getting up at 6:30 now. I hope Brian doesn't laugh in the background. And then, get out for like the 7:45, 8 o'clock run, come back and do a couple calls. And then it's pretty relaxed. I took a good chunk of time off just because, again, it's kind of that long game thing where, do I have a couple more years of my career? Let's try and get there. And I don't think that means hammering myself right now. So I'm sort of in the process of getting in shape, which means the runs are a little bit shorter. The afternoons are a little bit more free. And so it's a lot of lounging around and reading some good books in the meantime.
What books are you enjoying right now?
I'm reading Barbarian Days. It's a surfing book, and maybe that's why I'm like chasing that perfect feeling in the run, and like it's like chasing a wave. But that's been really good, and just good. I put The Power Broker on pause because it was a little bit too heavy and dense, and then I'll go back to that, and then I'll read another one and go back to that. So it's been fun.
I remember Benji Durden told me he used to read sci-fi stuff before races. I remember going to like the Cascade 15K, and the guy's sitting there with his backpack. And he is reading just the trashiest sci-fi stuff, So I was always fascinated with people who would read, Yeah. And I have a couple really cool pictures of you from the Campesio cross country in Italy. And I know you had an affection for cross country. How did that play a role in your career? How did cross country, and does it still play a role?
Yeah, it's I think it's one of those. It's own sport, and you can go do cross country at any time with whatever fitness you have. And it's just fun, because the main goal is to compete, and your time on the course doesn't matter. And, you're not trying to beat last year's time on it because maybe it was muddy or maybe it was hot. And it just really simplifies the sport to competing, which is what I love to do. And I've never really had an amazing cross country season where I was just like, this is lights out what I'm the best at, but I always loved just going in and mixing it up. So when I get to a point in running where maybe I'm, do I want to do this? Do I enjoy competing? Or am I doing this for the wrong reasons? You can go back to that sport and race some cross country, and it either isn't there and you go, okay, well, maybe I need to just kind of go on to the next thing in my life. And it's always kind of something I like, and that you kind of refine the passion for running and more importantly, racing for me. It's like, oh yeah, I do like this. Like, let's extend it out to the distance I'm actually good at. Yeah. And then I go back to the marathon.
I've watched you compete, I think, in almost every professional time you've been on the track in the 10,000, 5,000. I seem to recall, was it 2010 at the U.S. Champs in Des Moines when it was as hot as hell? And 2 or 3 times you would just get into this place where you were going to try to break them. And I really enjoyed that about you. What is it about the 10,000 on the track that you enjoy? Or did you enjoy that distance? I'm just curious.
Yeah. It's such a grind. I mean, you have to be really patient, but you're also running really fast. It's like that perfect balance of speed and strength. And I ran it once in college. So as a pro, it was like I could always kind of go back and get a little bit better. It's a race I enjoyed. I think I got away from the track stuff after that 2012 injury, which was unfortunate because you kind of like to balance in that speed work, but also at a certain age, getting on the track was just really, really hard on my body. Sure. We kind of flirted with it a little bit after Boston was postponed and considered maybe trying to get a trials qualifier. And then opportunities kind of just started getting erased. And so we hit reset and kind of rethought about it. But still, I don't know. Part of me is like, if I got on the track, could I, maybe run a 5-10 second PR maybe, but maybe it's wishful thinking.
I thought you ran an incredible race in Atlanta, and I was so thankful that Atlanta was that weekend, because 1 week later we wouldn't have had it. And, I've been to every marathon trials, God, since maybe 1980, and it was my favorite because I thought athletes were treated really well. Mm-hmm. And it was, to use one of your terms, a grind, of course. Talk to us about the trials marathon. What was going through your head? How did you forensically analyze your race afterward?
Yeah. It was so fun to be a part of. I mean, you just see how the marathon's changed over how long I've been in the sport, and the depth of American distance running, and the quality of the people at the front. It was just really cool to see that versus like my 2008 experience in Boston, and watching the guys run in 2007. And every time you go out there, it's just a lot tougher to make a team, and the depth is just so much better. And you could see that jump again this time. So it was really just quite a bit of fun to even be in that field and surrounded by that energy and growth in the sport. The crowds were incredible. Atlanta just did a fantastic job with getting people excited about it and making them feel like they could be on the course, and they were going to be watching something special. And I agree. They just treated us so well out there. So I know all the folks at Atlanta Track Club worked really hard on that. And I from my point of view, it certainly paid off. And we all felt like they put on a fantastic show. As far as the race, I mean, I thought I got pretty well, and there was some hiccups along the way, but nothing out of sorts for a traditional marathon build-up. And so was confident going in, but it's definitely that the depth on the women's side. It was like you could have the race of your life and finish 10th, and that's just how good it was. And there could have been any number of people who made that team, and it was really fascinating, and it was cool to see it all shake out. I wish it would have been a little bit different. It just that last mile or so, but I think I ran to where my fitness was, and it's one of those strange races too, where I typically go back and go, I could have done this different, maybe that, or on this part of the course I should have, but at the trials you run it once, and then most likely won't go back to Atlanta, and so I don't spend a ton of time really evaluating it beyond that. I think, Walt and I kind of looked at training things and went, if this had gone a little bit different, maybe. But they were also things that were just kind of out of my control. And so felt comfortable with the result. And, obviously the team's fantastic. So I was pleased with, how everything went that weekend.
What is Walt Drenth like to work with? Because he coached you in college, is that correct?
He did, yeah. He was there for 3 years while I was at ASU, and then he moved to Michigan State my senior year. Mm-hmm. And then he's a Charlevoix native, and so he spends his summers up here, and kind of we see each other in the summer. It's fun. He's just super laid back, and I think he's not trying to tell me what to do. He asks, what do you want to do, and let me help you, let me guide you towards those goals and those results. And so it's, feels like a partnership, and it's a lot of fun to kind of reconnect with someone who worked with me back in college. And, it's just, we talk about running a little bit, and our spouses laugh because our conversations on running are always pretty short. And then we'll talk about what we're reading or what music we're listening to. And they're, is the meeting already over? I thought you guys were going to talk about the Olympic trials. Like, yeah, we're done. It's like, you're an old pro and he's an old pro. And, we kind of just trust what each other is doing is right. And I think the longest conversation we had was before the trials. I knew he was going into Big Ten weekend indoors, and he knew I was headed off to the trials. So we had a long conversation. It was like a whole 30 minutes where we talked about running, and then, and then we were set from there. And both Kara and Ryan were concerned. They're like, is everything okay? Or you guys were on the phone for a long time. I'm like, yeah, we're good.
What is, when you do a hard workout, do you do it by yourself?
I'm usually by myself. Well, that's not true. Ryan will jump in for a lot of it. when he's in the running mode. He does some triathlon stuff, so he kind of, if it fits in with his training, he'll jump in and help me out. But I do either with him or by myself. Yeah.
Now Ryan's got a coffee company with Ben True. Are they still doing that?
It's Ryan's now. The Trues are kind of focusing on the Olympic year and just kind of had heads down doing that. And so he sort of took up the reins, and we have Linden by 2, and Ryan kind of runs the roasting and the whole operation, and I jump in and help when I can. But yeah, he's enjoying it.
Do they do mail order?
They do, yes. You can go to coffeebylt.com.
Cool.
We're on there.
We will put it up for you guys, okay?
Oh, nice. Thank you.
I saw some pictures, and I'm a coffee freak. I know more about coffee than I do about bourbon and whiskey. And so yeah, I will check it out. But
cool.
So are you in Charlevoix now, or are you in is that upstate Michigan?
So it's still Lower Peninsula, but we're like just the standard. We're up on the fingertip on Lake Michigan.
Okay.
And we split a little bit of time down in Rochester as well. Airport's a little bit easier to get to, and so on and so forth.
Well, how big's the town you're in?
Pretty small. In the summer, it's pretty much tourism, and numbers go up and the whole thing. And then in the winter, it gets a little lonely.
Yeah, we're in Wisconsin most of the year, and I'm in a town of 10,000, Fort Atkinson. Yep. And then I go back and forth to there in San Jose. And when to be around less people, we go down to the coast and then drive along the coastal highway, which is what we do on Sundays, and
nice.
To kind of see the water. But
yeah,
do you believe you're going to have a season at all in 2020? Do you foresee any normal races in 2020?
I mean, being someone who focuses on the marathon, no. I think.
Sorry, that's me.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. With New York off the table and Boston's postponement being canceled, I don't see normal happening for marathoners, which is where my attention would be. And it was kind of a big reasoning behind hitting reset really hard. Just took that whole month off of no running and just getting back really slowly, hoping and fingers crossed that next spring is a go and I'll be really fit and ready to go then. So there's a long stretch until then, and I can kind of ease my way back into things. But as far as track goes, it seems like things are popping up here and there.
Yeah.
And I know some European meets and Japanese meets are happening. So that's, there could be some opportunities out there. It's just not necessarily events where I would target getting fit for.
Let's talk about whereabout testing.
Yeah.
That's been in the news a little bit. Mr. Kipsang went a little farther than whereabout testing. He's being accused of faking a landslide so he didn't have to do his whereabout testing. And right now, I am so sorry. I do not know why.
You're a popular man.
It's just weird today. And I thought I turned. Oh, there we go. The phone's actually off. And then, Christian Coleman didn't show up for 4, and I kind of went after him pretty hard. And then, you're in the whereabout testing pool, right? So you have to say for an hour each day. Is it Monday through? Is it for all 7 days of the week, or is it just 5 days of the week?
All 7. Yep.
Okay. So you have to give them an hour a day where they know where you're at.
Yeah.
Is that a difficult thing to do?
I'm not trying to give anyone a pass because it's not really difficult, and it's part of we don't have a lot of requirements for our job. Like we run from A to B.
Yeah.
You can fill out where you're at, but I try to have a little bit of, I guess, empathy for strange situations. Like we do split time between Rochester and Charlevoix. So if we decide at the last second, you know what, the weather's bad, let's drive downstate, like whereabouts are not top of my mind.
Sure.
And so it's interesting, but it's also, there's 3 opportunities. And that's the part. It's like, okay, I can get 1 or 2. But if my job's on the line, I'm going to do everything possible to make sure there's no number 3. And you have a whole year. So if one of those is going to expire, and then you're back down to 2. They don't just stay with you forever. So I can understand, I suppose, missing 2. But you have so many, if it's your career and you're making a lot of money, you got to spend some of it to make sure that your career is safe. And that's hiring someone, getting the right doorbell. Like, there's plenty of ways you can cover your bases, and you got to look at the team around you as well. Like, I'm paying you a lot of money. What are you doing to help me make sure things are okay here? So, and then I look at the other side. I'm like, I'm 36, so I can fill out a calendar and be responsible. If I were 22, would I have been as good at this? I don't know, so I can kind of understand it, but it doesn't make it okay, I suppose.
Thank you. What do you think about the increase in positive tests again among East Africans right now? Does it surprise you? Does it disappoint you? Do you want to take a mulligan on it? I normally haven't asked you about this, but my belief is that when a positive test happens, it means that the sport's doing the business to build credibility, and we've had credibility issues. And it breaks my heart when I see someone test positive. But in my era, in the 70s and 80s, it was so dirty, and it was, and you knew, and it seems like they're making more of an effort. You have had a very particular beliefs, and I respect that. I just wanted to give you a chance to make a comment.
No, I think it's always it's publicly and publicity wise, it's a bummer because it looks like, track and field's so dirty, but every test that's positive is a bad person no longer in the sport. So it's a good thing. And I think they're targeting areas that maybe haven't been tested as rigorously as they should have been in the past. And so that's a great thing too. And I think, even having people in Kenya and Ethiopia having to do whereabouts sort of puts pressure on that there's this possibility that you might be tested, and it's not a safe haven or the wild, wild west anymore. You can't just go off to these countries that are remote and not be tested. It's happening. And so I think it's an all around good thing. And, obviously the World Marathon Majors have put in a bunch of their own money to kind of amp up that side in the marathon. So that's, again, that's a good thing for all of us. And so, it's publicly and for publicity, it's tough, but for the sport as a whole, if we can clean out the bad people that are cheating, that's a win.
Okay, I'm going to take 5 marathon courses. I'm going to give you the names, and you've got allowed 3 words to describe them. Okay?
Okay.
We'll start with an easy one. New York.
Hilly, tough, memorable.
Okay. Berlin World Championships 2009.
Warm, breakthrough, and fast.
Rio 2016.
Gosh, kind of boring. We'll go with boring.
Okay.
Competitive.
Okay.
Rewarding.
Okay. Boston Marathon course.
Best race ever.
Cool. LA Trials 2016.
Ooh. Flat, hot, just miserable.
Atlanta 2020.
Ooh. Tough, grinder, heartbreaking.
Now 5 athletes.
Okay.
Shalane Flanagan.
Legendary icon, friend.
Kara Goucher.
Ooh, groundbreaking leader. Tough. Icon.
Okay. Paula Radcliffe.
it's like the same words for all of these guys. They're all so good. Legendary, inspirational, fast.
Okay, and now I'm going to let you. I'm going to give you a description, and you've got to give me an athlete name.
Okay.
Toughest athlete you've ever competed against.
Amy Craig.
Okay. Nicest athlete you've ever met.
Jared Ward.
Okay. Thank you. That's fun. I started doing that a couple interviews ago, and Mike said, "Larry, you got to do it with Des." Okay, so I'm wearing the shirt, and it's the Bourbon is Whiskey shirt, which when I want to get my numbers up on Twitter, I just put a little quote up about you, show another picture, and the Desians come out.
That's funny.
What do you recall about that New York race? What was there? What did you tell me that you learned from all your races? So in New York in 2019, what did you learn from that race?
Yeah, I just wanted to be super aggressive there. In the year before, it was just like it went out so slow, and it was a really great day to race, and I just felt like it was a wasted opportunity. And so when it wasn't really a slow start, but when it would kind of like back off, I didn't want to finish and go, man, we wasted a perfect day. And so I was just aggressive in the middle, and I didn't care that, it was like no one was following me or I was out front, pushing the pace. And I had a moment where I was like, oh my God, is this going to be like Meb in Boston? Like, are they just going to let me sneak away from them? And it kind of went through my mind for a second. And then, Mary and Jocelyn just blew by me running so fast. And it was cool because they were just like, we're not wasting this perfect day either. But it was a great time for me to just take a risk. And I feel like I'm at the point in my career where I can do that. And I've never really had a horrible marathon, so why not swing for the fences on one? And it was, the last 6 miles were really tough, but it was exciting to know that I managed and I didn't totally implode, and I held on. And I knew Kellen was chasing me down in the last 400 meters, and I still had the chops to go, okay, I can just hold her off. Like I still got the legs to do that, and so it was good. It was good to just extend myself and see that there was still some left in the tank late when I needed it.
At the wizened age of 35 or 36, and my mother, God rest her soul, would tell me that I should never, a woman should never admit to being over the age of 29. I got in trouble one time for arguing with a nun saying that my mom was 24. But so it's your marathon experience. Do you believe you can still win a Boston or a New York?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it would be really tough. I mean, you have to have the right training, and that's always the big question, getting there healthy. But you look at what Meb did, he wasn't a spring chicken when he won Boston. And then you look at the way Edna's been running on that course, just fantastic. And she's always in the hunt. And so there's people that are doing it, even Shalane's last marathon, she was on the podium in New York. So the right day and the right conditions. Yeah, I think I can. And I'll continue to show up at these races if that's what I believe I can do. And, it takes a lot of luck. I mean, you can be really fit, and it still takes some luck to have things fall your way. And then you have to go out and capitalize on it. And so I think there's still a chance. And so it's certainly keeping me training.
Cool. Okay. So we're down to the final questions. You got about 4 more minutes to put up with me. All right. So we're going to do a little play acting. You're in a room. You've got 100 high school girls in front of you who are really digging cross country. And one of them asks you, how do you know that you're good enough to continue to go on and be a pro? What would you tell them?
I missed that. How do you know that you're good enough to
pursue a professional running career?
When
did you? So the question probably is more like, when did you really know that, hey, this is something I want to give another 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years to?
Yeah, I think I would say I ask that same question to myself every year, and I'm still so intrigued by finding my limits, you know.
Okay.
Nobody gets into professional running to be rich or famous. You get into it to find out how good you can be. And, you know, we were asking about, do I still think maybe I could win one of these races? And I do. And I want to know the answer. I don't want to hang them up too soon and go, man, what if? Like, maybe I could have. And so I would say if you're intrigued by that question and you have the resources and you want to commit to it, give yourself a chance, because you only get X amount of years to find out how good you can be. And if it's something that you're passionate about and interested in, try it. And then it would not stop being interesting or fun. You can go on to the next thing. But why leave yourself with that question of like, what if?
Cool. If you were talking to a group of high school kids again, and their cross-country season right now doesn't look like it's even going to happen, what would you do to encourage them to just get out and run? How would you talk about that?
Yeah, I think right now is a really interesting time to set yourself up for that long game, you know, and whether that's the next season that you do have is being really prepared and having gotten stronger and fitter and a little bit better in this off time. That's the immediate thing that's in front of you for your high school season, but also like running is a healthy habit that you can do for the rest of your life. And if you make it a habit now, you'll just kind of get hooked on it and continue to do it. And it's going to be super therapeutic right now. I think people need something to, you know, use to help get themselves better and take care of themselves for maybe it's 30 minutes or an hour a day. And so use this time to make running that healthy habit. Hopefully it helps your cross country season, but it will help you in something down the line, no matter what that next thing is.
What's your go-to training shoe?
Ooh, I'm a glycerin fan. Yeah.
And when you're normal training, non-pandemic, what's the typical week for you in terms of miles?
Yeah, so in peak marathon, I'm like right around 120. Was getting up to almost 130 before the trial, so that's pretty high for me. But you know, typically, I guess average, I'd say like 90 to 100 for year round.
Do you take naps in the afternoon?
Always.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
What music are you listening to right now?
Oh, what do I have on right now? That's a good question, Larry. I haven't put on some dialed tunes in a while. I need to go find a playlist.
Okay. Do you listen to LP still, or do you do playlist and DVDs? And I know DVDs are ancient now too, you know. But I have 400 old LPs, and I still play with those. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll put vinyl on every now and then. We had a few Woodstock albums the other night playing, which is pretty cool. Yeah. But I'm also a huge Spotify fan, so you can go in there and pick your artists and do my radio and find all kinds of new stuff. So it's like a rabbit hole. I mean, it's one of those things you go down and you're just like, I lost a whole day listening to new music.
Yeah, we drove down the coast and put on ELO's Fire on High, and then got all these songs from the 70s that I had a Volkswagen bus back then, and that's how it is. And we just tool up and down the West Coast, and
that's cool.
And I'm looking for a new one now, so I'm out.
Okay,
they're a little more expensive than the $900 I spent in 1978. You know,
I bet. Yeah, Ryan and I kicked around the idea of a Sprinter van. We're like, we should just get a van and like drive around, do some stuff. So you're onto something.
Yeah, there was a magazine in the 90s called Monk, and it was these two guys out of SFO that had a Volkswagen bus, an early Apple laptop, and they did magazines at every place they stayed. And my dream is to go to track meets and cross-country races at all the states and find tiny little ones that no one's ever heard about, and then write about them and video them and stuff. So it'll be something down the road. You know, just keeps fun. Do you keep track of the number of races you've run in your career? Do you know how many races about you've run?
No, I was using that, is it ARRS or something along those lines? And that kind of had a really good, like some obscure results in there. Like, I guess I did run that. But no, I've lost count. I'm too old, Larry. I stopped counting after 29.
There you go. Do you remember your first race ever? And what was it? Or what do you recall as being an early race if you can't remember your first race?
Yeah, it was probably a junior Carlsbad 1 mile.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
blast
cool.
from the past. Yeah.
What year would that have been about?
Oh, I don't know. I was probably 10 or 12 or something like that.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, it was cool. Arturo Barrios used to always be out there running. Like, I remember that name. And
remember Arturo, yeah.
So I remember I was very familiar with the Carlsbad 5000 and that whole scene. But yeah, it was pretty cool to go out there. And my dad would take me and my sister would be like, no, I'm not doing that. That looks boring.
Well, Des, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day.
Absolutely.
Enjoy the rest of your summer in lovely Michigan. Stay safe, and we'll get this up in the next week. We'll do the whole video, but then we break it up into clips. So Mike will come up with like key questions that I asked, and we'll put them out and stuff too. So awesome. We'll get it out. But thanks again for everything. My best to Josh, and I hope I miss seeing him I miss the whole crew and seeing him on the road. That's the hardest thing, It's just like normally this time of the year I'm in Stockholm watching a track meet,
right?
And it's you need your fix. So and it's not as much fun watching it on TV. So we hope to see you in a race soon, Des. And thank you again.
You got it. It's good to see you, Larry.
Good to see you too. This is Larry Eder with RunBlogRun, socialing the distance. We featured Des Linden today. She's in lovely Charlevoix, Michigan. I like how you pronounce Charlevoix too. So, it allows me to use my high school French. But have a great day, and we hope to talk to you again soon. Thanks, Des.
Take care, guys.
Hey, sports fans, it's Larry Eder with RunBlogRun. This is the epilogue to Socialing the Distance featuring Des Linden. I love Des Linden. She's just fun. She's a tough racer. She likes to put it all on the line. She has the respect of serious athletes. She has the admiration of citizen runners. She's just a likable person. And I just spent 35 minutes with her asking every question that crossed my mind. Just so you know, I follow the Lenten method of interviewing. Lenten method is named after Brian Lenton, who is a rather eccentric Australian writer that I've never met person to person, but we corresponded, and I worshipped his books back in the late 70s and early 80s. He was a friend of Rob DeCostella's and let me see and understand and appreciate the Australian running scene. And he did not believe in having preordained questions. He would kind of go with the flow. But he added something to the conversation, which was a 6-pack of an adult beverage that he would share with the interviewee. Among those was Ron Clark, Sir Roger Bannister. Not sure if Sir Roger Bannister popped one with him, but I'm pretty sure Ron Clark did. And Brendan Foster. And I have these books of interviews through the tape. They are just glorious. And sometime I'll ask Brian about letting us put some of these things up online because they are absolutely amazing. So I have digressed, but you guys expect that. Anyway, so now you know my method of interviewing. So I started out with Des with the 2011 race. Why wouldn't you start there? It was a race where she took second in Boston, and people went absolutely apeshit over her performance. And she smiled a little bit and just talked about how she told herself that she'd get to 20 miles, and if she could get to 20 miles, then it could be a race after that. And she battled it to the very, very end. I think she ran the last mile like 5:18. It was insane. 2:22 performance there. Des talked about how much she enjoyed cross country and how cross country is pretty cool because it's not about the time, it's about how you're racing against someone else. I got to ask her about being coached by Walt Drenth, and it sounds like a very good relationship and a nice coach-athlete relationship as well. And we talked about training during the time of COVID. She's doing one workout a day, and then she's reading books and spending time with her husband and grinding some coffee for him. And we'll get the link up for their coffee company. In a typical non-pandemic week, she's doing somewhere between 120 and 130 miles a week. Before the trials, she was up to 130, feeling really good. And our discussion about the trials, Des said that she gave it everything she could. And for that level of fitness, she was pretty happy with it. She's open to races over this fall and winter, but she's a marathoner, and there's not going to be much out there right now. And we talked a little about doping, whereabouts tests, which she says, she's trying to give people a break. You should be able to handle it, but things come up. And I think that's just typical of Des Linden, is that she is pretty straightforward, and she believes that you got to see both sides of the story. But she's a gutty performer. I've got to see her run cross country, run the 10 on the track, and I've seen, I think, everyone but one marathon performance. I look forward to seeing her again. I asked her also to describe various courses and describe various athletes she's competed with. That was a lot of fun too. So thank you, Des Linden, and enjoy Charlevoix, Michigan for the rest of the summer. This is Larry Eder with RunBlogRun, and this is Socialing the Distance featuring Des Linden. Talk to you soon.